time a troll pretended to be Casey's father and would call to berate Chris on his lifestyle and how he would never get together with her. Liquid Chris is widely considered to be the funniest and best troll in Christery. Around this time, Chris's father caught wind of his presence on the internet and cracked down on him in a famous video where Chris was screaming at the trolls to get everything off the internet! Finally, we have Alec Benson Leary, the man who wrote Asperchew. Asperchew was a parody of Sonichu, a Sonic Pikachu hybrid who has Asperger's and looked eerily similar to Chris. This would culminate in Chris writing a Sonichu comic where he brutally executed his trolls and cured homosexuality. After all this drama in 2009 and 10, Chris would get into some real-life trouble with Michael Snyder, the man who ran the game place. He would also begin to slowly transition into a woman, first starting out as a tomgirl. This did not sit well with his conservative parents. Speaking of which, in late 2011, Bob would pass away. This would cause the trolls to back off for a little while. Unfortunately, Chris and Barb would get into huge trouble again by colliding with Michael Snyder after trying to enter the game place again. This would result them in blowing most of Bob's inheritance on legal fees to lessen the charges against them. To add insult to injury, in 2014, Barb and Chris's house would catch fire and burn down due to their horrific courting situation. This would begin the financial crisis, where Chris would release videos begging for donations and then blow the money on toys or other stupid shit. Chris would find something new to get upset at, though, when Sonic the Hedgehog was redesigned to have blue arms. Chris also believed he was growing a vagina underneath his taint and tried cutting at it for it to show, but thankfully the trolls on Kiwi Farm stopped him from doing anything this drastic. Chris would later start a relationship with Jessica Quinn, a fat fetishist. When trolls ended up ruining the relationship, Chris would screech and cry in a video called No More, where he looked and sounded like a swamp witch. In late 2017, Chris fell under the influence of the Idea Guys. These were a group of manipulative trolls who faked friendships and finally pushed Chris's sanity over the edge, convincing him that Nazis were taking over Quinnville, that he was in a polyamorous relationship with his own characters, Magichan, Crizel, Savannah, and in all seriousness, the Idea Guys were some of the most harmful trolls in Christery and even extorted a total of $6,000 from him. They got him into believing that his imaginary wife was being tortured. They manipulated him into filming a video where he masturbated while singing All-Star. And they also instilled the idea that Chris was a god who would usher in the Dimensional Merge, a semi-apocalyptic event where fictional characters would become a part of our dimension, or universe. Joshua Moon, also known as Null, from Kiwi Farms, would start contacting Chris to protect him from these kind of people in the future. At around 2018, a man named Jacob Sockness, who was stalking and in love with Chris, would emerge and start harassing and manipulating him, but thankfully this wouldn't last very long. In 2020, the coronavirus emerged, and Chris coped with this by pretending to switch bodies with Sonichu in the cartoon dimension that he spoke of during the dimensional merge, which lasted for several months. During this time, Chris would be interacting with another group of enablers called the Praetor, who wanted to support Chris into selling his merch while they take a slice of the pay. A member of this group, Isabella Loretta Janke, also known as Bella, would obsessively involve herself in Chris's life. She has her own deep rabbit hole, which I might go into in a different video. Chris trusted her to the point where he willingly told her his darkest secret at the time. He was having sex with his 80-year-old mother. This was actually foreshadowed by previous events. One time where he took his mother to the high school prom, and another where he defended incest online by saying he had dreams of having sex with his mother. Bella maliciously leaked this, and Chris would not keep his mouth shut, telling everybody while insisting it was consensual. An emergency protective order was called on Chris, thankfully, and he was ordered to leave his home, away from Barb. His relatives would completely reject him.
Season change? It's winter now?
and he instead
Yeah,
managed
I
to
don't
get a
know
motel
why
room.
the map
How
was
do you
going
ask?
so
Well,
bad.
Null discovered
the
that
season
Chris had
changed.
access to Barb's bank
Fucking
account and sent
June.
himself $900 into his own pocket from
That's
her
how
account. This was a blatant violation of the
what's it called?
EPO, and
Festival
Null gave up
playlist
on
works.
Chris
It's by
completely and
seasons. We're in the
reported him
winter
to the
season.
police. Chris's
So there's new
arrest
cars
was
you get.
filmed
You can
by
get a
fellow lolcow
Land
Ethan
Cruiser
Ralph.
Arctic.
In jail, Chris wrote many letters and
puffy
undertook
tires
a
and you
new
get a Subaru.
delusion.
Dude, how many
He
more
was
points do you
Jesus
need,
Christ.
dude,
He
in
kept
the
on
next wristband?
insisting the sex with his mother was completely consensual. It should be noted he was charged with felony incest and never rape, but videos of Barb when she was in her old years revealed that she seemed weak and somewhat aloof. It's a wonder why she'd ever consent, but then again,
10,000 or
that
so.
charge is yet to be thrown, so make of
13,000.
that what you
much?
will. Chris,
13,000 or
however,
so.
would later to start denying
Oh,
the sex
shit.
accusations completely,
more than
despite
halfway.
telling everybody he did it way back then.
I've got it
Suspicious.
down
This was
to
likely done under
4,000.
advice from his lawyer, but let me tell you, he did
Yeah.
it anyways.
Well, I haven't
He
been
would
doing
later
any
be
races.
released after nearly 2
shit
years due to the
sucks.
power of bull, and he'd be quiet on the internet for a while. Then, he'd release his return video as well as a follow-up
Literally
video
just
of him
fast
denying
traveling
that
for
he ever
every
had sex
speed
with
zone and
Barb,
shit.
lying again. It was revealed that he was at
Yeah,
a
that
new home
big
under the
ass, boy.
assistance of the Praetor, and they set him up with a job making and selling his merch. Many sightings of Chris nowadays are with a new girl he's with nicknamed Flutter, who's assumed to be from Finland since he's also been seen there. Nowadays, he still believes in the dimensional merge and that it's happening, and he's basically gotten away with all he did. Not completely though, as he's been banned from many conventions. He managed to learn how to avoid the trolls as his current management
Hooray,
filters all the
every
bad
speed
actors out.
zone.
It's only a matter of time before he gets
speed
himself
trap.
into trouble again though.
With 3,800 more to go.
Yeah, that big ass, bro.
That is not good.
Chris Chan's pursuit of getting a girlfriend has been the longest arc of his story. It started when he had a dream where he would give birth to a daughter named Crystal. From there, he knew he needed to meet what he called a boyfriend-free girl to marry and create a child. In
Boyfriend-free
1980, over
girl.
his entire life, he attempted to court many different women to mostly failed results. Today, I will look through
That's
his
good
history
shit,
of
right?
love interests. Let's go. Chris's life growing up had many potential sweethearts. First, we have Sarah Hammer, a childhood friend who Chris kept in contact with as he was growing up. Sarah would eventually tell Chris she has a boyfriend, though, a man named Wes Isley. Chris was very envious and resented him for years for this. Later, he dropped this, though, as he created something called an attraction sign. The purpose of this sign was so he could hang it around the mall or at his college
You're gonna try
campus
and get
instead of
Riley to
approaching
watch
and
this stream
interacting
while he
with
falls
girls
asleep
directly.
listening to
The
this
sign
shit.
reads like a resume when Chris is talking about himself. There's a lot to unpack here, but that last line about marrieds and blacks just confuses the shit out of me. Eventually, Chris would befriend a woman named Anna McLaren who wrote about him in her blog post, The Tale of the Crazy Pacer. Basically, Chris was pacing like crazy at the mall, stimming, and he approached her with a failed pickup line. He then
Stimming.
awkwardly gave her his number and walked off. Anna is actually gay, so nothing came from this. Around the same time, though, he met Hannah, someone some might consider a proto-troll. Hannah was a Starbucks worker who Chris asked out on a date, and they did indeed go on one. Chris was apparently taking notes during this date. Anyways, after the date, Chris has said that his heart went from 20% all the way back up to 100%. But Anna McLaren had to break the news to him. Hannah was a troll. When Chris asked Hannah about it, she confirmed this was the case. Chris yelled "No" on the top of his lungs, getting him banned from the mall temporarily. He claimed his heart shattered and went all the way back down to 15%. After moving on
Back
from
down.
these incidents, Chris befriended his next love interest, Megan Schroeder. Chris met Megan at the Game Place, a game and hobby store he often frequented. They became friends, with Megan not realizing what she was getting into. Chris would advance with creepier and creepier behavior, and each time Megan would reject him on this. Chris would develop the same interests as she would, such as Sailor Moon. Chris would enter a Parappa the Rapper contest, where the #1 prize was a trip to Seattle for two, and 2 PSPs as well. Chris blatantly did it for Megan. When he lost, he ranted about it on some forum and said that he even intended to get into her pants. Megan would eventually catch wind of this and gave Chris a piece of her mind. She said she was glad he lost and would never spend a night with him alone, also venting frustration at his harassment towards her. Unfortunately, that wasn't the end of the drama. Chris was caught up with some dastardly trolls who were sending him many pictures of
Dicks.
so he really wanted to make sure that everyone knew he was heterosexual. He did this by drawing a pornographic picture of him fingering Megan. Yeah, not exactly a good move. Megan would see this and would essentially say she doesn't want to be friends with him anymore. Chris desperately tried winning her back in an email correspondence, but only made it worse. At one point, he said that he drew the picture because he had a lot of pent-up sexual aggression, which has dark implications. They would lose complete contact after Chris was finally banned from the game place. After some trolling, a woman who claimed to be a big Sonichu fan contacted Chris. Her name was Blanca Weiss, and yes, she was a catfish. Chris claims to be fluent in both Spanish and German, so the trolls played into this by naming the catfish White when translated. Chris never picked up on this, making his multilingual claims far less believable. Blanca had asked for a Sonichu medallion to be sent because the trolls told Chris they would steal his medallion and Chris vowed to never lose it. Well, he gave it to her and they destroyed it. In the beginning of 2009, Chris started talking to a girl named Julie, who is voiced by a 13-year-old boy. She was from a country called Mulvania, a complete fictional country that both Chris and even his father Bob believed it was real. This troll is known as Blue Spike. A famous clip is when Chris was having phone sex with her and Bob walked in, producing the famous internet lumberjack clip where he says, "Get away from that internet, I'm cutting it down." My favorite part of the clip was the billion Windows XP dings after Chris asks Bob to get away from him.
Can we get out of here? No, will not.
Chris also created an infamous video called For Julie's Eyes Only, which is a video of him having sex with his inflatable sex doll while he's pretending she's Julie. In the video, Chris has several choice words, most famously calling out Julie before finishing. This video was leaked to porn sites and eventually got millions of views. Chris's house would receive postcards of certain images from this video. Eventually, Julie's evil brother Max, who is also voiced by Blue Spike, kidnapped Julie and convinced Chris to drive all the way to Ohio to rescue her, with the address being a dead end, obviously. Blue Spike would successfully hack into Chris's Yahoo and PSN accounts and took the trolling way too far. He would coerce Chris into shoving his medallion into his anus, and eventually Julie revealed herself to be Max all along. Thankfully, the sick act was condemned by the trolling community. After, Chris decided to go with a real woman this time, a girl named Emily. She and Chris actually went on a date together, with Bob accompanying Chris. During this date, Bob actually did most of the talking while Chris was awkwardly holding her hand and touching her. Eventually, the two would walk off, and the man, the myth, the legend himself appeared, the man in the pickle suit. He approached Emily, asking to see Watchmen. And of course, Emily couldn't resist this handsome son of a bitch, so she accepted, walking off with him, leaving Chris dumbfounded. Chris would later lament this at home, saying, "The pickle man tricked me again." Chris would move on and befriend another woman named Ivy. Ivy is famous for drawing out the creepiness in Chris, as he seemed much more dedicated this time to trying to get her. He made a famous video where he would talk to her in an unsettling babyish way.
Oh, we are going to have so much fun together when you and I are together.
Lots of content came out from this little era, including a new Christian and the Hedgehog Boys album, another tour of his house, that horrifying Fanta video, and others. He did all these videos for Ivy. Most infamously, though, were the NSFW pictures. He would take pictures like this for Ivy, but he also did a series of nude videos for her, such as him dancing while naked, being in the shower while naked, and spanking himself while he was, of course, naked. Interestingly, Ivy asked for videos from him, but she never asked for any nudes. Chris did all of that voluntarily. Eventually, Ivy would fake her own death by game ending herself. In retrospect, Chris claimed he knew she was a troll. Next up, we have Casey. Chris had a long-term enemy known as Liquid Chris, who would impersonate Chris and claim he was the real Christian Weston Chandler. Liquid Chris's real-life girlfriend would also participate in the trolling by pretending to be Liquid's girlfriend. See, the story went like this. Liquid Chris had one day just straight up disappeared, and Casey began considering Solid Chris as a potential partner. So she began interacting with him. They actually went on a real-life date where Chris would be very inappropriate to her, touching her a lot and staring at her breasts the entire time. They would have many calls afterwards, with Casey actually trying to get Chris to improve his own life. Eventually, Casey brought on her father, who is played by another troll, where her father reprimanded Chris for his man-child behavior.
I am not lazy.
You're living with your parents and you don't have a job. How is that not lazy?
Eventually, the jig was up, and Liquid would come back into the fold while Casey was on another call with Solid Chris. Chris and Liquid would argue, and Chris even brought in his parents to fight his battle for him. Barb told Chris to hang up on that bitch, referring to Casey.
Pretty sure I'm out of
Casey and Chris had one last phone call where she'd reprimand him before saying she would marry Liquid Chris instead. Chris would eventually start contact with a girl named the Wallflower. This was a real-life friend of Chris who he had romantic and sexual interest in, but she just wanted to be friends.
I was gonna go.
Chris would make a little
my
bit
brakes tomorrow. My
like
front brakes.
creating characters of both him and the Wallflower, and
Amazon brakes are
accidentally
good.
revealed her full
I don't know
name.
if I told
From
you that.
here, she was doxxed. Many no-life trolls
they're
on the
low-key kind of
internet
meh.
found information on her. The Wallflower would cut off contact with Chris entirely for this. Jackie was another troll who would contact
It's supposed to rain
Chris,
tomorrow, so I'm not
claiming
gonna
to
do those.
already
It's
have a
fucking rain.
boyfriend named Lars McNulty, a man who is
But I also don't want to
extremely
drive in the
obsessed
rain
with
because my front right
boats.
tire is
Lars
like
was actually voiced by the same
fucking
troll as
slick.
Alec Benson.
The last thing I want to do is
Chris to do a whole
hydroplane.
bunch of funny things, such as dressing up
be
as
alright.
Mr. Popo from Dragon Ball
Oh no,
Z.
dude, I've done it
She would
already.
also try to
The
get
one
Chris
tire
to
gets
do
grip and the other one doesn't.
things, such
When I
as
hit a
drawing
puddle,
an
and then
image
it like
of
fucking
men
yoinks me
masturbating
the
while
fucking
watching
direction
her
of the
and Chris
tire
have
that
sex, but he refused.
planes, you know?
She was also present for Chris's
the opposite
transition
direction, sorry.
into a tom
Towards
girl,
traffic.
but she would cease the trolling act after Chris's father
That's what it does in
died.
the wintertime.
In 2012, Chris had gone through a trial after hitting Michael Snyder with a car. He was still a virgin at this point, and
Also,
he
I
was
figured
afraid
out
of
my fucking
losing
back
it
right
in
tire.
jail. So he decided to take drastic
backed it
measures
up,
to lose it before
shook
he
the
was
fucking
sentenced.
wheel, and
He
it
hired
was
a prostitute
bad.
named
It was
Mia
really
M. He was
bad.
feeling
It
very
wiggled
good
every
afterwards
direction.
as he was no
Turns
longer
out the
a
fucking
virgin with
axle
rage,
nut was just
a
like way
non-virgin
loose.
with rage. Thankfully, though, he never
I've heard you
actually
don't
went
need
to
those.
jail as his sentence
It was
was
way
reduced
loose,
to
so
the
I turned
level
up,
of a
I
mistake.
tightened it down, and it's
At the
fucking
height of Chris's
night and day
Tom
difference.
Girl
That
phase,
explains
he
the
met a girl
fucking
named
rear steer
Catherine
that I
on
keep
Okey
getting.
Cupid. They went on a date to Applebee's with a man named
Fucking
Bill
rear end
is
Cat,
towing
identifying
in
as
on me.
her cousin.
Or
Kat
out.
had a lot of interaction
Usually
with
in.
Chris, audio recording the whole date. According to Kat, Chris was once again
But I think I fucked
inappropriate
that wheel
to
bearing
her.
when I hit
They
the
also
car.
visited
Snow
Chris's
turfing.
house at the time and spoke to his mom Barbara briefly. Kat had stuck
never made
around
any
Chris
noises.
for a period of time, which included the horrifying period where Chris got a taint piercing. Eventually, she revealed herself to be a troll,
What the
bringing
fuck?
Chris's heart level back down to 15%. A couple of years later, Chris got into a Facebook relationship with a woman named Jessica Quinn. Jessica was a fat fetishist who influenced Chris to draw fat versions of his Sonichu characters. People to this day are still unaware if she was a troll or not. Eventually, Jessica would have her Facebook account hacked and blamed Chris for it. They would break up and Chris would have a legendary meltdown screaming, Shortly after, Chris would fall under the control of the Idea Guys. They manipulated him into believing that all cartoon characters were real, including his own. They implanted an idea in his head that never went away. He was in a polyamorous marriage with his own characters, Magichan, Crizel, Savannah, and Mute. He stated that this was the true end of his love quest, and it was happily ever after. Too bad it wasn't. In 2021, a big leak occurred. Chris had revealed to Null from Kiwi Farms that he was dating a woman who was older than him and once
Oh, that turbo sounds sick.
Null was confused but didn't poke or prod any further. Little did we know, Chris was describing his own mother. He revealed this graphic info to a troll named Bella, who leaked it to everyone else. Barb and Chris have always had an uncomfortably close relationship. This was foreshadowed by Chris going to the high school prom and bringing his own mother along as a date. When photographed in public, Chris would always be touching Barb in an unusual way. Many people even accused Barb of being manipulative and abusive, coercing Chris into cuddling with her and sleeping in a room after Bob died. After getting leaked, Chris would eventually get arrested. In jail, he adamantly claimed the sex was consensual in a bunch of jail letters. He would get taken in for psychiatric evaluation, and then when he returned, he changed his story, saying that he never had sex with Barb, a story he commits to this day, even after being released from jail. Nowadays, Chris is currently with a woman that he's nicknamed Flutter. Details about their relationship are unknown. Chris claims that they're just friends, but there are images of him and her being very close. They were first filmed at a Food Lion together, and then again while shopping. Flutter goes by many nicknames such as Cabbage Patch Kid or simply Egg. A running joke began where she manages to avoid getting any clear picture taken of her, leading people to speculate if she's underage, also due to her very short
Yeah, dude, I do.
However, witnesses who've interacted with her and Chris directly say it was clear she was an adult when they were close up and
I
seeing
sound
her.
white ninja.
She is speculated to be Finnish. Reason being is Chris and her have been photographed in Finland together. Right now, Chris is doing a very good job keeping her true identity under wraps. Perhaps he really did change in jail.
Yeah, the black was.
Then again, he is under the influence of Prater
That always
right
got
now,
swagger.
who's basically keeping him from harming himself. If he breaks away from them, however, I think it would only be a matter of time before he ruins yet another relationship. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. I covered a bunch of other lolcows and their love lives in a previous video which I'll have linked. In the meantime, I hope you have a great Valentine's Day with your loved one. If you're single or going through a bad breakup, however, don't fret. If Chris Chan can eventually get a girlfriend despite having the least amount of Riz scientifically possible, then you definitely
Finally got the fucking blueberry
have a
Miata
good
done.
one.
The Unos?
Yeah.
That's our in it. Finally got it.
With the set-off Mewtwo King at Kings of Cali 4 already on his resume, it was no secret going into 2015 that Amsa was good, but the real question was if he'd have staying power with his unorthodox character choice. Best of 5 sets were a struggle for the Yoshi.
Alright, another one, dude. Let's go.
Oh god.
What made him this way?
Oh, this is
What is the
2026
attraction?
update,
What
bro.
keeps us fascinated? A wise
Oh,
man
hell
once said
yeah.
many times. For over a decade, Chris Shane was the internet's favorite
Driving
orator, most documented
Lloyd.
lolcow of all time, the Sonichu guy, the troll to insanity cautionary tale. But in 2026, no epic meltdown, no grand finale, just a 40-something ex-YouTuber wandering between Walmarts, card shops, and extremely schizophrenic Twitter posts
I wanna get
while
the-
everybody quietly moves on.
Meta
The
glasses
reality
or
is,
whatever.
Chris Shade is boring now, and that's exactly why this is the last chapter. This video is about how Chris Shade
I want to
got
record
involved.
like at work and shit. those guys I see on Snapchat.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, and dudes of all teenagers.
Dude, every single person watching this video already knows who Chris Chan is, so I am not about to rehash every single saga of this man's life. You can go watch Geo Samuel if you'd like to see that. This video is going to be more about why the show is over, how Chris Chan fell off from relevancy, and why this is probably for the best. Now that being said, I'm probably still going to have to give a brief recap on this guy, so if you don't want to see that, then here's the timestamp so you can skip right past. You already know the basics. Autistic kid in Virginia makes Sonic Shoe, gets discovered by a bunch of early internet forums, and in the mid-2000s being discovered by 4chan and Encyclopedia Dramatica as well, and becomes the lolcow template. Some people consider him to be the very first lolcow. Without a shadow of a doubt, he is the most famous lolcow and the most well-known, even having his fair share of references in mainstream media, such as the Sonic Boom cartoon and Smiling Friends.
Do you realize?
Dude, how do you crash into a fucking boom lift at 100?
If we fail this inspection, we could lose our office, and we'd have to move out of it.
Years of trolling escalate from prank calls and fake girlfriends into full-on psychological manipulation, doxing, and constant harassment campaign. Then 2021 happens. The leaked phone call where Chris openly describes sexually assaulting his elderly mother, and the incest threats that turns the internet clown into an actual sex offender. This is the point where Chris Chan went from a lolcow to what is known as a horror cow. Lolcows that have committed some very atrocious crimes against humanity. A very well-known example being Cyrax. Chris is arrested in August of 2021, held in jail, then sent to a Western State hospital after being found incompetent to stand trial. After about a year of bouncing between jail and psychiatric care, Chris is declared incompetent and the case quietly moves forward. This is the point where, historically, you'd expect a high-profile trial, wall-to-wall coverage, and some massive meltdown. But that did not happen. You know, here's a good question. What were you doing when Chris Chan got arrested? Because I sure as hell remember. Just like how people remember exactly what they were doing or what they were wearing during 9/11. I remember that me and my cousin went out fishing and I had landed the largest largemouth bass I have ever caught in my life. Then I go home and I found out that Chris Chan fucked his mom and now he's in jail. So I want you all in the comments to tell me if you remember what you were doing when Chris Chan got arrested. Anyways, back to the video. After almost 2 years inside, Chris is suddenly out. March of 2023, Virginia's Vine system shows that Chris has been released by court order, and jail confirms that there is no Chandler in custody. Fact-checked independent American patriots confirm that yes, the literal motherfucker is no longer in jail. On August 8th of 2023, the incest case is dismissed under an autism-related deferred disposition arrangement, meaning that the court basically routes it to an alternative process because of Chris's autism and mental state. Yet another W from our justice system. Don't you love it? Hide your boyfriend-free grandmas because Chris Chan is on the loose. No, it's kind of similar to what happens to people like Daniel Larson and Cyrax, where pretty much nothing really happens.
Oh, do you know those
Cyrax? Pretty bad crimes. They always just have some kind of metaphorical plot.
I don't know who's worse, Cyrax or fucking Chris Chan.
You know, it's like that quote from Fear and Loathing. Too weird to live, too
I think Chris Chan's, dude, he fucked his mom, bro. Like, at least Cyrax never
raped a blind kid.
And the biggest reason as
dude, yeah, that's still, I still don't think that's as bad as having sex with your mom, bro.
You know, there really just isn't much to talk about, and he's been kind of like Bigfoot everywhere. Like,
Chris Chan is like the OG.
It's clearly just people taking pictures of him in public, which
by the way, don't do that. Getting to that level, like he's up there now.
That's basically all there is. So
I don't know,
for like a solid.
I mean, he's up there, but like, I don't even think he like.
What he was doing.
I don't think he's worse.
I don't even think he's close to being like.
Cyrax is like the second most known lolcow.
They basically just had to speculate for a pretty long time on his actual whereabouts, you know?
And you get people like
It's definitely a strange change of pace. But yeah, anyways, once Chris was free, the quote-unquote lore drops turned into something that would have been completely unremarkable about 10 years ago.
Dude, I watched those videos so
much. How Chris Chan was in the 90s. You know, people would take pictures of him doing random things in public, mostly just playing trading cards, doing stuff at game stores, and being out in public. However, there was a key detail that made Christorians go wild with speculation. A recurring blonde woman, later known as Flutter, appears with Chris in multiple sightings in 2023 and 2024, from local restaurants and airports to even trips abroad. By late 2023, it's confirmed that Chris had his own car again, and he was basically just driving around and living a low-budget, deeply unexciting life. You know, that's honestly kind of relatable. In 2024, Quickie logs multiple sightings of Chris out in public, while emphasizing that his online presence was heavily declined compared to the 2010s. Threads and posts about him were increasingly read like, "Saw Chris today, he bought snacks, that's it." He isn't streaming epic freakouts, he isn't responding to all the trolls, he's just standing in line at Sheets like anybody else. Also, another thing, Chris Chan has kind of gained a huge spike in notoriety pretty much ever since the whole Geo Samuel documentary came out. Gamer from Mars also made another very successful documentary series on YouTube, and that definitely exposed a lot of people to Chris Chan.
Boy, okay, now I just feel like I have to do this. First time in here, I feel like I gotta do this. Hello, my name is Apu. I went to
But it was 100% this 2021 incest situation that put him in the mainstream. And with
I need to
comes a
watch
bunch of
that
people
video
from
after
TikTok
this,
that know absolutely nothing about Chris Chan that want to be the next Clyde Cash. There are a bunch of unfunny weens that have absolutely nothing better to do with their lives. Not even troll someone like Daniel, who definitely deserves it. However, I will say this,
dude,
I think
Daniel
it is pretty
Larson, another
surreal and
fucking
kind of
big
creepy
one.
that Chris Chan just kind of became this cryptid that you could just see out in public. You know, if you're in like anywhere near the Northern Virginia area, there's a good chance you could run into this guy. That's not me saying you should go out and track him, but you know, just be aware.
I see. Kiwi Farms people are in the Telegram talking about mass reporting my stream. Hey, look.
The Keffels Saga. I bet you haven't heard that name in years. Keffels was another online figure who has relentlessly trolled on Kiwi Farms, even leading a campaign to get the farms taken down, which succeeded in late 2022, although the site went back up. However, you may ask, why is she getting trolled so bad? Granted, targeted harassment is never justified, and unfortunately she was the victim of a swatting, but why was Keffels so hated? Surely it's because she's a trans woman, right? Well, that's not the full story. In 2024, Keffels was exposed for not only having a Discord server full of minors, but also selling estrogen to minors behind their parents' back, all in order to groom them into transitioning genders. Since then, her and her husband tried to raise money for a GoFundMe in order to relocate and sue against harassment.
100K.
But unfortunately, Keffels decided to embezzle over $100,000 and proceed to literally spend that money on drugs, among other things that were not a part of the legal fund. And overall, it was just a massive shit show in 2024. Now, this is not a video about Keffels, but how she became relevant to the story was the fact that in her campaign to take down Kiwi Farms, she held an interview with none other than Kristen Weston Chandler, another innocent trans goddess who was bullied by the evil alt-right chud. Basically, this entire interview is what you expect.
Is that a trans
Chris
person?
going off on his usual delusions of
I
grandeur,
guess so.
Keffels ignoring
That's
the
a
fact
dude?
that
I'll
she's platforming
I'll
a
give
little
them
rapist,
that. They,
and just
you know,
Chris's usual
they fooled me.
narcissistic sob
mean-
stories, and that he doesn't deserve all this backlash.
I see
So
it now.
through the whole
but-
interview, you'll notice that Chris has a very detached way of conducting himself, which is a pattern that you'll pick up on pretty much all of his clips leading up to and after his release.
Looking back, do you have any regrets?
Well, I'd say just essentially let myself fall for the theoretical X's, as I call them, and let them do me over. The blue spike that held my PlayStation Network accountable and saw the loss of Sanchi
Bro,
Medallion
he's
number
fried.
2. And I do appreciate that, they had to help shape and develop me mentally and emotionally, so I can have that damage within me to be stronger and more ready for
Apparently
it
he's, like,
in the
living
longer run. So
in
I can
Europe
actually
somewhere.
finally do something about it within
Where do you think he's living?
intense in
Apparently
recent
he's
years,
living.
especially after
His
I managed
girlfriend's
to
from like
clear
Sweden
my
or
mind
something.
over the past
Oh,
couple
I think it was
of years.
Finland, dude.
So
what
every
he
blessing
said.
Finland?
counts.
Yeah.
Also, not gonna
So he,
lie,
like, moves
something
back
I find
and
pretty
forth
funny about the
between
whole
there.
interview is Chris clearly
It's like he's been
isn't
spotted in
afraid.
Finland.
In other news, water's wet. We've known this for a very long time. By his own admission, he says he has done it to hit on lesbians. And there's a really funny part of the interview where Chris basically goes on about how the trolls used to send him gay shit back in the day. And this is like right after Keffels is talking about getting doxxed and shit.
Yeah, all the homophobia. I mean, I I was affected by that as well, and then just the trolls on the internet bullying me and thrusting gay images on me. Like when I had the Wikipedia and the individuals behind that, they just put them on the side, like these gay boy ads, these are like porn sites or whatever. And just
like this guy who is supposedly a woman just cannot cope with the fact that people joke about him being a homosexual. Like, it seems like your logic's a bit backwards, my guy. I think trying to become a woman by eating a bunch of estrogen and dyeing your hair blue and doing some unspeakable things to your own body, I think that's a whole lot gayer than just seeing some gay shit posted on your website, but who am I to judge?
We will be sending hormones to dudes of all teenagers.
To say that people grilled Keffals for this interview was an understatement, as this was one of the many reasons people used against Keffals when she went through her drama on the internet. Let me be clear about what just happened. Keffals literally scraped the bottom of the barrel, getting a literal incestual rapist to come and defend her on a show just because people were saying mean things about her on the internet. Although, despite the criticism that she got for platforming a literal sex offender, she didn't really succeed in giving Chris any momentum, which, in all fairness, would be impossible given Chris's Godzilla-sized digital footprint. Instead, this just gave us more Chris fatigue. It proves that there's nothing new here, just the same old delusions in a slower,
I don't have all the
package.
fucking stamps
Only this
yet,
time,
man.
it's like he's being dragged with the social movement,
I got all
just
the
so someone
stamps.
would listen to his incoherent ramblings.
Stamps are pretty chill.
Yeah, I
Now,
feel like
another
there's
thing
gonna
that
be
happened later in
more fun to
2024
get.
was definitely something that spiked Chris Chan's relevancy,
Yeah.
and it all came from one of
I
his
didn't even mean to
otherwise
get it, I
boring
just
live
happened to get
streams.
Yeah.
Because I was like running it. I think you get it from the signs and shit,
when the
right?
child is actually coming into play, or somewhere around that point.
Or barn
I
finds
just
or
might
treasure
keep y'all in the dark
treasure
and
card
let
finds, maybe.
y'all know and wait till after the child is born.
So he's having
When
a
somebody
child,
donated to him
bro.
on a live stream, by the way, this guy's a fucking loser. I don't know why he'd give money to a
Serious?
sex offender.
Apparently.
He asked Christian when he was going to announce that he was having a baby, because apparently this person
that
had some
finished
insider
research.
knowledge that nobody else knew. And Chris decided to give an alarmingly vague response. Now, of course,
But they
as
honestly,
you can
they've been
imagine,
saying that
everybody
for,
lost
like,
their shit
more
when they
than 9
realized that
months
Chris
now.
Chan could be possibly having a child. And for good reason.
So he might
This guy
already
is
have.
just about the least qualified
He
person
may
to be
already
raising
have
a
one,
child,
or is
along with
bullshit.
the fact that he has
It's
said some
fucking
pretty
Chris Chan.
disturbing things about his own hypothetical children in the past. But alas, nothing came out about this. There is no evidence that him, and presumably Flutter, were having children. And thankfully, that ended up being the case. And also, I think it was obviously just bullshit. Chris is the most unreliable narrator ever. He's literally deranged. Although I think the concern is justified, he is definitely not having children. This is just one of his delusions. And I hope, whoever Flutter is knows about this and does not let it happen.
You've written us so much fanfiction. You shipped me with Barbara. You shipped me with that snowlight.
For a long
What the
time, Chris wasn't just a
fuck?
lol cow. He had become a horror cow, as I mentioned previously. Obviously, the biggest horror cow event that he had ever done was Boinkin' Barb.
Oh
but
my
also,
God, dude, the
there were
rest
jail
footage
letters
is so
about him
great.
being a literal goddess, dimensional merges, and cosmic illusions that turned the story from goofy to genuinely kind of unsettling, both for those who are uninitiated with Chris and for Christorians alike. And most importantly, some of these
I think
letters even
Cyrax
confirmed
has
the sexual
more
abuse of his
police
mother.
footage than
This had stopped
anybody
being a
can.
funny train wreck and became a genuine true crime case. It's a depressing reality that there is no cure, no redemption arc, and no entertainment value left that doesn't look like punching someone who's already been completely broken. Also, Chris definitely isn't very free anymore. As I mentioned, he has some caretakers, known as the Praetor Group, and to be honest, we really don't know a whole lot about them. And that's for the best. They've definitely got Chris down on lock and key, and they realized that unfiltered internet access for him really was never a good idea. All of the trolling definitely shaped Chris and who he was. Not saying that it wasn't justified, or that he isn't worthy of criticism, but, you know, it definitely didn't help. And also the fact that his parents did not know how to handle a child with autism, especially in the 1980s. Also given the fact that they did not understand the internet, and there was a large generational gap between them, which is not good for a child with a social disability. Chris Chan wasn't just a lol cow, he was a historical artifact of a very specific internet. The quickie and decades of forum threads have turned him into one of the most obsessively cataloged individuals alive. Every forum post, every Facebook rant, every weird drawing, archived, timestamped, mirrored across wikis and forums. This simply just can't happen again, because platforms are more aggressive with bans, privacy protections, and content nukes. Sites like Kiwi Farms have been deplatformed and pushed to the margins, as seen with Kefla. Also, another thing, the internet was a much more toxic place back then. I'm sure any of you who have survived to see Modern Warfare 2 lobbies know just how toxic that shit was. Now we live in a day and age where you could just mute people who are harassing you. You get instantly banned if you even troll anybody, and cyberbullying is a much more known phenomenon now, and there are measures against it, and it's taken way more seriously. I don't know about you, but if you were like me and you were in public school in the 2010s, cyberbullying was a major issue that they talked about, and they drilled it into our heads that it was not acceptable. These are changing times. Also, another thing, all of these forums that Christian were on are pretty niche now. Kids aren't really using them anymore. If they want to bully a lolcow, they'll probably just do it on TikTok. However, back in the early internet, forums were extremely popular, and they were kind of your go-to source of social interaction. Point is, all the modern lolcows are interchangeable clips, while Christian is a 20-year-old case file. You'll still get your weirdos,
Dude, I could never get
freakouts,
over
and
Daniel
manipulative trolls,
Larson where he
but you'll
shaved
never
his head
ever
down
again
the middle.
get a single person whose entire adult life is documented,
Daniel
cross-indexed,
Larson.
and narrated in real time by thousands of upset strangers in a way that Chris's was. Now, honestly, this isn't really a good
won't be
or a
out
bad
very
thing.
long,
It's
dude.
just the reality of how the internet has evolved over these years. I think
got
we should
found
be
as
thankful because a lot of the shit that we knew about Chris Chan, I think a lot of us would rather not know. Plus, I genuinely cannot think of a bigger waste of time than just reminiscing about Chris Chan. Honestly, there's much more productive things I could have been doing with my time than just sitting down and making this video. I could have made a video that taught you a useful life skill. I could have made a video about my cute little lizard. I could have made a video about anything other than this predator. But here we are.
Yeah, I know. But at least it is of importance because we gotta protect this space bridge.
Can I get a French onion soup, please?
Now, the saga of the so-called most documented man in history did not end with a bang. It fizzled out. It ended with a whimper. The incest case was dismissed via an autism-related disposition instead of a cinematic trial. Not too different from P. Diddy. Although Chris just straight up wasn't sentenced. Chris just wanders around Virginia, occasionally leaving the country, having some weird relationship with Flutter, chilling half-baked projects, and making old forgettable streams. His channel now is more focused on making Transformers videos, as that's basically all he's uploaded within the past year. The hardcore watchers are still there, logging sightings and archiving posts, but as a whole, the broader internet has moved on. The most cataloged lolcow of all time is now, functionally, a background character. No one's refreshing the thread for the next big saga, because the big saga is finally
Kinda
over.
sad, dude.
And in a messed up way, that's probably the only ending this story could have. Not a dramatic redemption, not a shocking finale, just a boring, lonely, quiet afterlife for someone who spent 2 decades being watched like a zoo animal. And to be honest, I think Chris should be very thankful of this, as all things considered, he got off pretty easy. You know, I guess for an analogy, Chris Chan's life is sort of like the life of a used Honda Civic that was driven way past what it was built for. It started out as a harmless beater owned by old people, Barb and Bob, before the teens, the internet, got the keys, gave it too much boost, and thrashed it for years until the engine finally blew up. Now, it doesn't race, it doesn't crash, it just sits like a faded lawn ornament. Something people glance at and say, hey, remember that? And they move on, soon to see itself in a junkyard. So is the story of CWC. Now, this video is not me defending Chris Chan in any way. Quite honestly, he's a pretty shitty person. He's a narcissist, and above all else, he is a sex pest that has turned into an incestuous rapist. However, what I am saying is this era is over. The people who are made fun of online will have their moment in the limelight, and they will eventually fade out. Or alternatively, they will be like World of T-shirts and turn it into a successful brand. Or, the third option, they eventually go to prison. There really is no in-between. Because of this, I don't think I'll be making any more Chris Chan videos in the future, unless something crazy happens, of course, which I doubt will be the case. However, I am open to talking about other lolcows, so if you guys would like to see that, please leave some suggestions in the comments below, as well as any video ideas or other people you'd like me to cover. All that really matters is that Chris is left up to his own devices, and he can't
Daniel
hurt
Larson.
anybody else.
Daniel Larson,
Although in a
right.
perfect world, he'd be in prison right now, but I guess that's just...
Turkey Tom.
He's got his own controversy. Did that video 4 weeks ago, United States versus Daniel Larson.
Hey, this one? Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
That love Turkey
I
Tom.
want to grab something
This isn't
real quick.
Hey. Okay.
Live streaming other appreciated stuff.
I just did.
The Lords and Vows.
Oh yeah, but anyway.
For many residents in the Denver area, especially those with social media, it wasn't exactly a secret that a man by the name of Daniel Larson was going around the streets causing havoc.
Daniel Larson.
But as years would pass and he was continuing this behavior, the same question remained. How long would this go on for? Daniel is known to have the world's toughest plot armor. After years of being infamous online, Daniel was constantly being watched by viewers who would report him to local police and federal authorities. Messaging dick pics to people he thought were minors.
Just always
Bro really does have
reported.
plot armor.
He does.
Dining and dashing, reported. Making repeated threats of violence, reported.
Media account and put it out there right fucking now.
Did you ever
that
hear
I
his
am not
calls from
lying,
prison?
or I will kill you as well.
There's like a whole saga.
There's no way to know how many
calls he made in
reports were
prison.
made about Daniel's behavior over the
Dude, they're
years, but
insane.
one thing is sure. The
probably
majority
in
of the
this.
reports were either ignored or not looked into fully. In the off chance Daniel was actually held responsible for something, he would be booked in the county jail and then typically released the next day.
Looks like a bug. An insect.
Daniel had one key area of expertise on top of his self-proclaimed talents and career in singing and songwriting, and that was his skill of making
Why
threats.
did they always, like,
Whether
say
it was
this?
Daniel threatening to murder someone,
Making
threatening to bomb hospitals, or simply threatening to bomb every single police station in the world, simply put, Daniel made a lot of threats. In fact, it's estimated that Daniel only went an average of 9 days between known or documented threats between the years 2021 and 2024. Some
Dude, that was
common
so
threats
peak
from
time.
Daniel to put things a little bit more into perspective
COVID, fucking-
included,
So
I'm going to
fucked.
bomb the University of Colorado. I will bomb Clark. I am going to bomb an airport. I am buying a gun tonight. Jesus Christ, I can only imagine my roommate hearing me saying all these things. Daniel would even go as far as texting 911 to tell them that he would murder the police. While
Oh
these
my
were not
God.
super serious threats to people who had been following Daniel online for a while,
4
to
PM,
residents in
by
the
the way.
area and the authorities, they obviously were.
Not like late night.
In
thoughts.
2023, when Daniel's threats really started ramping up, is when Secret Service Special Agent Daniel McDougal enters the lore.
Daniel fucking
Yeah, dude.
For multiple years, McDougal was keeping an eye on Daniel and investigating him. Most followers of Daniel thought that McDougal was simply just a made-up character by a troll or one of those weird fictional delusions of Daniel's. But McDougal came into the
I thought it
picture
was fake.
specifically after Daniel made a TikTok video claiming that he would, what do you know, blow up the White House.
This message is to Grace. Grace is a fucking nerd and a hater, and I will always hate her now because of what
Grace is
she
a
did.
fucking nigger.
And yes, I will bomb the White House. I will fucking bomb the White House. I will fucking bomb every single police station in the entire U.S.
The very next day, on the 30th, is when things started to finally get more serious for Daniel, having to meet 2 Secret Service agents to discuss his recent threats made online. It's unclear how Daniel was originally contacted by McDougal, but it is known that Daniel posted a text message thread with someone who is believed to be McDougal, discussing an 11:30 a.m. meeting for the following day and asking Daniel not to delete anything off of his phone, as they wanted to gather evidence from it. On YouTube Live, in a totally crystal clear recording, Daniel would end up filming himself walking up to the 2 men at a park, where they would greet him and request that he please stop live streaming.
Yep, that looks like them. The Denver investigator and the Secret Service.
Dude, he had the Secret Service and FBI on him so quick. Like, that was a hot motherfucker.
Hey. Okay. I just did.
Daniel would comply, and the live stream would come to an end. McDougal would then go on to interview Daniel, urging him to not keep making threats like he was continuing to do, and ultimately it is believed that the contents of Daniel's phone were reviewed. So McDougal was actually real? Yes.
Who's Grace, dude?
Even
Are we gonna
outside
hear
of Larson
about
League, on my
Grace
own videos, I
Vanderwall,
still
the
get
famous
comments
singer.
asking me this. He
She got,
is
like,
indeed a
famous
real
super
person.
young.
He is not a figment of Daniel's
Like,
imagination.
there's a video of her playing a ukulele that blew up.
So let's zoom out and see
then she
just
went on
how
to,
often Daniel McDougal appeared
like American
in the
Idol
story,
or some shit.
even when people didn't even know that it was really him.
Anyways, he had like an obsession with her.
We next saw
That's why he got
McDougal
arrested.
pop up in March of 2024.
Yeah, but who
on
was
March
I
18th,
wonder who
Daniel
was
posted
playing
and
her.
claimed that he
You know what I'm
learned
saying?
how
I
to
don't know,
make a
they
bomb
never-
while in jail. McDougal and his
There's a
female
bunch of
partner
different
would put a
characters.
plan in place to
Definitely.
find
It's probably
Daniel
multiple
and have the
people
local
acting.
It
police
is.
department arrest
It
him
is,
based on
yeah.
the existing warrants that he had. This was so that they could interview Daniel based on those recent posts that he had made.
I don't see him. Is this the one where he pulls the fire alarm? I don't remember. He pulls the fire alarm somewhere.
He has numerous warrants, and they
Like
want
a
questioning for threatening
Cops red or
terroristic
some
acts
shit
online.
like that.
Her do the talking. What's that? But it's mostly because it's also because we want to ask him about something he posted yesterday.
That's crazy.
I don't understand who the guy in the red is.
That's
You know me,
McDougal.
right?
Yeah,
I got a beard now.
Oh.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Can you sit down
He's
for me real
wearing, like,
quick,
normal
brother?
ass
Yeah, I
clothes.
appreciate you. You can just sit right here.
We do have some something out from my hand.
I will get you something if you'll just take a seat for me.
Look at him.
Sure, just right here. That's fine.
Like Smeagol.
It's my partner.
Okay.
Will you sit down for me?
Okay.
Mr.
Sure, I'll sit down.
Thank you. Let me get you a napkin or something, okay?
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you run this subject and go ahead and confirm?
Subject.
Yeah, I was just on the phone with them and everything was okay.
Can you like make it any bigger, like slightly?
So I'll just give it to
Paper.
It would be crazy bigger, but yeah, that's way better. He's got the fucking music playing.
Do you have full faucet for you in?
No, she's been talking to Officer Jones.
Okay.
I know he's got a couple warrants.
Yeah, I'm just gonna wait till she gets here because she's taking over the case. I'm just helping her out. So
Okay.
we'll let her talk to him.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not jumping in and talking.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I literally all the information I had was from her, where she was like, "Hey,
It's
you
so
find
weird to
him
see
and
somebody like
can you get him?"
over close so he can like
Got a napkin?
Sorry.
Yeah.
But
What do you need?
He's been pretty compliant, so I was gonna give him a napkin. I guess he can just have a paper bag.
Right, this nose or something?
His hand. Hi. Hello.
Why was that so sweet sounding? Hello.
Sorry, what'd you say?
I was just on the phone with my PO.
Okay. What'd your PO say?
He said everything's good, and we're working on on the 27th I have court, so he said just go to my court on the 27th.
Okay. Not a napkin, but it'll have to do.
Oh, thank you.
That's what I had.
Thank you.
All right, Daniel. So here's what's going on, okay? You do have warrants, okay?
I'm aware.
You got 5 of
Am I
them.
like the only one that
All right?
keeps like
One you're going to be
napkins in my
arrested
car?
on today, okay?
Like,
And
stuff
then we're
them
going to
somewhere.
contact Jeffco, and they're probably going to extradite you on the other ones, okay?
Okay.
All right.
I'm aware of
Okay.
the one.
I don't want your bags.
You can just leave it right there. Okay.
We'll end up putting you can put your phone already in the bag if you like,
Sure.
because we're going to end up putting it in the bag
If
anyways,
it's
okay?
decomposable,
Okay.
is it littering?
I was aware of the warrants, and that's what
Okay.
I was on the phone actually about.
Okay.
And then he said just deal with it on the 27th, since I
So you
have
putting the
court in
gloves on?
Jefferson County.
They're like, yeah,
Okay.
we're about to grab
All
this
right, go ahead and stand
motherfucker.
up for me, okay? I got you. Go and put your hands behind your back for me.
Surprisingly chill.
Oh my goodness, dude. It's kind of sad to watch.
It is, but it's like,
He had so much plot armor, and it just like he just couldn't
this
stop.
isn't. I didn't even think this is when he goes to prison.
No, he's already gotten out at this point.
No, he goes like he's still in prison.
Yeah, he's in
He's
prison
been in
right
prison
now.
for like 3 years.
Yeah,
But,
he
like, this
went
isn't
in,
the
got
time
out,
when he
and then
goes.
went back in.
Yeah.
I mean, he has 5 warrants on him, right?
Fucking great.
He's a kid.
It's just crumbled up paper mixed with it.
What?
What is that? That's some sort of like
Yeah.
drawing.
I don't know if you remember.
It's a grace.
There was some pass on this guy a while ago. Yeah.
That is in space.
Yeah. So it's just finally got him.
When body cam footage was recovered from Daniel's March 2024 arrest in Broomfield, it quickly became apparent that the feds were still very, very much involved in monitoring Daniel and keeping a close eye on him. If we go back to the arrest before this, the FBI was actually mentioned here too. Daniel was once again getting arrested, this time at a mall he was at due to him previously making a threat
watching a
to
Vivo
shoot up the
video
hospital
about fucking
after they kicked him out. Daniel was sitting peacefully in the food court preparing
DB
to join
Turner or
his
something.
UCLA Zoom class when he was arrested by 3
DB
officers.
Turner?
Do you know who TV Turner is?
Go ahead and make contact with him right now.
Famous guy that.
Hey, buddy, it's okay.
Oh, is that what it is, Cooper?
Just remember.
I thought it was Turner. I think I was thinking of Timmy Turner.
It's gonna be okay, buddy. We're gonna figure out the warrant, okay?
Tyrese!
Okay. Alright, so just relax. Everything's okay.
Yeah, DB Cooper, sorry.
What kind of class? Okay.
Finance, marketing, something like that, right? Marketing.
Oh, heck yeah, man. Heck yeah.
Daniel walked out of the mall to be met by what seemed to be the city's whole entire SWAT team and intel officers. When the officers were searching Daniel, the sergeant told the officer to put Daniel's phone in an evidence bag as a request from intel and feds. And then, after these 2 arrests and another one that features no footage, his final arrest and indictment hits. I still remember the day. 7 federal felonies. And who exactly was the agent who brought these charges onto Daniel?
Let me guess, Mr.
None other than Special Agent Daniel McMotherfucking Dougal.
Yeah. He looks way different with short hair.
He's a fed, dude.
In early 2024, a prominent user on Reddit came into the picture. He went by the name of Quincy, Quincy found out about Daniel, like a lot of us, seeing his videos pop up on TikTok, only to end up getting sucked into the rabbit hole of lore in such significant ways that no follower of Daniel has ever been before. Originally, Quincy was monitoring Daniel due to having online friends who worked at a restaurant in Boulder, where they would talk about Daniel as well as his dine and dashing habits.
No, they already figured out that he's
After watching Daniel for a couple of months, Quincy realized just how severe some of Daniel's threats were and wanted to make sure that authorities saw the totality of the situation and not just random screenshots. Quincy went through years of lore to build what he called the Daniel Larson Threat Tracker. This tracker was key and extremely helpful for authorities. He was able to find and document evidence for well over 100 threats that Daniel had made on camera. After the infamous April 7th meltdown, Quincy decided it was finally time to share a full package of what was going on to the federal authorities. So on the 10th, Quincy decided to email Special Agent McDougal and also reached out to the special agents in charge of the Denver FBI field office. This report seemingly got through to the right people fairly quickly, as McDougal called Quincy just a few hours later. The following messages were sent by Quincy to Larson League exclusively about his interactions with McDougal. I sent the email to McDougal in the morning, and a few hours later, I saw that I was getting a call from a number that had a Denver area code. Turns out, it was McDougal calling from the Denver field office. It honestly was a fairly quick call overall. He first thanked me for sending the full extent of everything and having it all well documented for him. McDougal acknowledged that Daniel doxed his information and said he got emails from people pretty frequently. He said that a few of the pieces I shared with him were new to him, and he appreciated me sending the details and also asked me to continue keeping him in the loop if there was any new info. At the same time, McDougal said that he likely would already know about it because he was already keeping an eye on things. There were a couple of times where he just mentioned he couldn't say more since it was an open investigation, but on the call you could definitely feel that he was taking things seriously and knew what was going on across the Daniel Larson community pretty well. McDougal asked if I was a part of management. I said no, but that I had Clark's number at the time. It was actually pretty funny how I got Clark's number. I was reviewing the Broomfield arrest body cam and watched the cop pull out a piece of paper where Daniel had apparently written out Clark and Tina's full phone numbers. Turns out, it was Clark's actual iPhone number. McDougal made a comment about it likely being a text-free number and was surprised when I told him that it was Clark's actual number. McDougal asked me to share the phone number with him.
What the fuck is up, guys?
McDougal explained how he didn't have a major issue with management, just that I let Clark know not to present himself as a lawyer, as obviously he is not one. He asked me to pass a message along to management if I could. He wanted me to remind managers to keep it within bounds, and that it wasn't worth getting in trouble over something like trolling Daniel.
So, like, the people
Overall, it didn't seem like he had a problem with management.
Crazy, dude.
The FBI is even like, yeah, go for it.
No, well, they can't really tell him to stop, technically, you know? It's, like, not illegal to, like...
No.
That shit's nuts, bro.
He said he understood what they were doing, just didn't want things to escalate to the point that there would be an issue. After the call, we exchanged emails a few times in relation to the case and the people surrounding the case, but that's about it. He mentioned keeping an eye on Lil Sippy when Lil Sippy was communicating with Daniel, and I know that McDougal shared information with partner agencies.
That's Grace, I think.
A little over 2 weeks after this call with Quincy, McDougal would officially file 7 charges against Daniel, and Daniel would be federally indicted. On April 30th, 2024, Daniel posted about needing to go to Boulder to meet with his probation officer. When Daniel made it to the area, he was met by law enforcement, who then arrested Daniel based on an arrest warrant issued for him, as he would then be federally indicted on those 7 charges. His final social media post was a YouTube community tab post saying, "I'm on the bus now to Boulder, Colorado." Daniel was booked into the Jefferson County Jail, later to be transferred to the Clear Creek County Jail. While most followers of Daniel assumed that this would be a quick slap on the wrist and he would be released as usual, soon after, documentation came out that this was not a simple probation violation. The charging document filed by Special Agent McDougal himself listed 7 offenses that carried a max penalty of 65 years in prison.
Yeah, dude.
At this point in time, one of the most consequential criminal cases of our lifetime ensued. The United States of America versus Daniel Larson.
Is that the end? Crazy.
No.
It didn't take long for Quincy to figure out
So now
the
he's
exact
now
threats
it's gonna be
that
him in
Daniel
jail,
made,
basically.
which resulted in these
Oh, dude,
charges.
there's a whole arc of him in
Count
jail.
1, July 3rd,
He made like thousands of
2023.
phone calls.
Daniel allegedly willfully made a threat concerning an attempt to damage
they
and
show
destroy
the,
a
like,
building by means of an
actual calls.
explosive,
They're
specifically a county courthouse in Colorado. Count 2, August 7th, 2023. Daniel allegedly willfully made a threat concerning an attempt to damage and destroy a building by means of an explosive, specifically a nonprofit center in Lakewood, Colorado. Count 3, August 29, 2023. Daniel allegedly willfully made a threat concerning an attempt to damage and destroy a building by means of an explosive, specifically the White House. Count 4, September 26, 2023. Daniel allegedly willfully made a threat concerning an attempt to damage and destroy a building by means of an explosive, specifically a state government building in Colorado. Count 5, September 26, 2023. Daniel allegedly willfully made a threat concerning an attempt to damage and destroy a building by means of an explosive, specifically a particular college campus in Colorado. Count 6, December 25th, 2023. Daniel allegedly made a threat to injure an individual, specifically a particular Federal Bureau of Investigation special agent.
Wonder who.
I will fucking have Daniel McDougal fucking killed.
Count 7, March 23rd, 2024. Daniel allegedly willfully made a threat concerning an attempt to damage and destroy a building by means of an explosive,
really liked that one.
specifically the Federal Bureau of Investigation headquarters.
The FBI can go ahead and press legal charges on me.
Is that even like known information?
I will just kill
Where
their
that
ass.
is?
As we all know, Daniel doesn't handle stressful situations well, and was not cooperative in prison without any issues, as Daniel was freaking out in
Forgot about
prison
little
and
Sippy.
crashed out for months straight from what we saw. Dr. Hansen, the BOP psychiatrist, shared with the court that Daniel hit himself in the face when he was frustrated while at FCI Inglewood.
Yeah.
On
There's videos of him
calls
doing
with
it,
Lil
like,
Sippy and
before
Clark, Daniel claimed to be having issues with
Joshua
other
Block.
inmates and sounded like he was hitting himself. In one of the calls with Clark, it even sounded like another inmate was giving Daniel a hard time for hogging the phone.
Oh yes, the phone call saga.
Relationship with Grace is real. But yeah, what? I can't allow that. I'm not gonna fight with you. I'm not. Yeah. I am on.
Apparently he's getting like tagged
Do you want me to fight you?
in prison.
Because, like, literally, I'm not gonna have this game. I'm on the phone with somebody. I'm on the phone with somebody. Relax. You're a fucking joke. You're 12 years old for getting upset at me for being on the fucking phone.
12. He always said 12. That's another thing.
That was scary. I know. Like, what the fuck?
Speaking of phone calls, Daniel surprisingly had a decent amount of contact with the outside world for a couple of months between October and December of 2024 at FCI Inglewood, before he was transferred to MCFP Springfield, where his communication was cut off completely. Most of the communication happened between Daniel and the same two individuals, Clark and Lil Sippy. Most of you by now already know who Clark is, he needs no introduction, but Lil Sippy is still a new character to some that came into the lore seemingly out of nowhere and exited just as quickly as he entered.
He's in his own.
Lil Sippy wrote a letter to Daniel after Sippy himself recently had just gotten out of jail. He was in jail in the first place due to being found guilty of battery and disorderly conduct that resulted in him getting into a fight with another inmate while in a juvenile facility. Great minds think alike, I guess. In Lil Sippy's initial letter to Daniel, he included photos of Grace Vanderwall and other celebrities that Daniel thought were hot, like Billie Eilish and Taylor Swift, although those were seemingly more of interest to Sippy than Daniel. It's unclear to what extent, but it appears that Lil Sippy got Daniel to call him by claiming to be in contact with Grace and being able to help Daniel with his legal issues. There have been a lot of allegations made related to Lil Sippy online, none of which we can confirm to be 100% accurate. But people have been making allegations about Lil Sippy grooming minors, being a part of the 764 group, as well as a bunch of other really concerning shit. So we'll stick to the information that has been provided officially in court documents and stated by law enforcement. In a charging document written by a police officer, they claim that an 8-year-old Lil Sippy allegedly drew a stick figure of one of the Boston Marathon bombers and expressed interest in making bombs at a young age. The FBI would investigate Lil Sippy after seeing him interacting on a known Al-Qaeda recruiting website. Lil Sippy then would allegedly call the police to ask if it was legal to make Molotov cocktails. Later on, in 2017, Lil Sippy allegedly wrote letters to 6 local schools threatening to shoot them up. He was charged with 6 counts of terroristic threats, in a way very much similar to Daniel. In August of 2021, Lil Sippy was allegedly planning on purchasing an AR-15. And in September, the FBI would obtain a letter that Lil Sippy allegedly wrote to Brenton Tarrant, the perpetrator of the Christchurch mosque shootings. In October of 2021, video surveillance caught Lil Sippy allegedly driving through the parking lots of multiple elementary schools.
What the?
The FBI then would obtain a letter allegedly written by Lil Sippy to Ethan Crumbly. Ethan Crumbly committed a school shooting in Michigan, killing 4, and Lil Sippy wrote, "I'm a big fan. I'm just writing today to show my appreciation for your service to the community and wondering if you'd like to be pen pals." In December of 2021, the FBI extracted information on Lil Sippy's phone, which allegedly includes Lil Sippy's mom sending him emails about the Sandy Hook and Columbine shootings, along with cheap guns for sale, a statement from Lil Sippy claiming that Adam Lanza is the greatest person in history, Anders Behring Berwick's 1,500-page manifesto, and describing having all 26,000 pages of the Columbine shooting. Daniel only attracts just the finest people, doesn't he?
I promise. This is the second time you idiots have showed up here. Yeah. We told you to go away the first time. We don't want to talk.
At some point, people began to realize that it was possible to send letters to Daniel and potentially get a response from him. Despite the numerous warnings from nearly everyone involved not to touch the poo, a few individuals decided to shit touch anyway and post about it online. The first to write a letter to Daniel was, of course, Lil Sippy. At the time, most thought that the letter that Lil Sippy posted was fake. We still haven't been able to confirm its authenticity as we have with the other letters, but Daniel apparently wrote Lil Sippy a list of his burning sexual questions. Can I ask you a few questions? Is the same hole females pee from? Is a gag reflex normal when you are about to come? Is pre thick and sticky? Does it tickle a lot like regular? I can't believe I just said that with a straight face. My roommate is like listening in on this and is like about to call the cops, probably. The next person who wrote Daniel a letter was a guy named Caleb, who posted about the letter on his Instagram account as well as on Reddit. Caleb claimed that his name was Kaylee when writing Daniel and sent photos of a girl to try and catfish him. There were a few letters that Caleb exchanged with Daniel, sexting back and forth, which Caleb ultimately tried to sell on eBay for $50 a page. That's fucking ridiculous, dude. In the letter, Daniel allegedly wrote, "My favorite thing to talk about is sex. My fave sexual smell I really like is the smell of pee. Do you think you could make me come fast with a job? Would you like my strong stink of my even if it smells like you need to gag? During sex, would you hold my legs open and you can rub my penis faster until I shoot my far and hard? Is it normal to feel like you need to pee yourself during sex? LOL, do you get too sensitive? You cry when you get fingered? I'm a virgin. Could you make me hard? Like scary hard and far? LOL, I would like that if it would ache a lot. I love pasta." Daniel went on to trace his hand for Caleb at his request, which is a common request that Caleb asked other prisoners to do. Fittingly, a guy named Daniel also wrote a letter to Daniel. He posted a long, heartfelt card that he posted online.
My name is also Daniel, and I'm writing to you from Los Angeles. I feel for you. I'm so sorry for how the trolls have been making your life so miserable. It's not fair. I don't think you meant all those threats you made and everything you said about Bob. I'm praying you beat the trial and get out of prison soon. I hope you write back to me, because there are so many people who care about you and miss you.
Daniel Larson read the heartfelt letter and responded with a few words using his go-to phrase. Please check out my music on YouTube and iHeartRadio. Despite the minimal response, Daniel, no, not Daniel, the other Daniel, would end up putting this letter on his fridge and posting about it on the subreddit and TikTok, and he still talks about it pretty often.
That's kind of funny.
So, I wrote to Daniel Larson, who is still in prison.
Oh my god.
And he actually wrote me back. This is currently current, and this is...
These are the individuals who had their letters read and documented by the BOP, and the individuals that Dr. Hansen is referencing when she testified in court about how Daniel was receiving fan mail from people reinforcing his delusions. In October 2024, Quincy reached out to Daniel's defense team after growing concerned about the influence Sippy was gaining over Daniel and how it was directly impacting the case, especially Daniel's competency.
It was, dude. Like, he totally had
Quincy documented the various aspects he was concerned about and shared details about specific angles of the case that he thought might be helpful to the defense. After Quincy's email, Daniel's defense requested to meet with Quincy face-to-face to be able to talk through the case and document specifics so they could be used in court if ever needed.
Oh.
God bless.
Daniel's defense attorney, Jared Westbrook, and their investigator flew over
imagine
1,000
being his
miles,
defense attorney.
multiple states away, just to meet with Quincy.
As a public defender, as a criminal defense lawyer, my job isn't to get up and justify the actions that they've done, right? Like, my job is to get up and say, it's okay to molest 17 boys or however, whatever has happened. As a public defender, your job is to make sure that the Constitution is applied properly to your client, right? So you have to know the rules, you have to know the law, and you have to make sure that everybody else is dotting their I's and crossing their T's. And that is 90% of what I do.
The following messages were sent by Quincy to Larson Leak exclusively about his interactions with Daniel's defense team. In late October, I was a bit concerned about the way the case was going in terms of competency, and seeing and hearing how someone like Sippy was attempting to coach Daniel into fooling the courts to be deemed competent, and the extent of the catfishing and trolling continuing, even with Daniel incarcerated. So I packaged up information that I wanted to flag and general details that I thought were relevant, and I sent the information to Daniel's defense team. Jared Westbrook responded and looped in a few others from his team, and Jared requested to meet in person and was planning to fly out for the meeting. I was a bit surprised that they were willing to travel just for the meeting, but I was interested in seeing how the meeting would go. Jared explained in an email about wanting to meet personally due to the fact that I wanted to remain anonymous, so he wanted to verify me and my information personally so he could use it in court if needed. Within a few days of my email outreach, Jared and an investigator on his team scheduled flights and were in my area. The three of us met at a hotel. The meeting was probably 2 hours, but not overly long. I had no idea what to expect, honestly. The two introduced themselves and mentioned that they were glad I reached out. They said that they had gotten a decent amount of emails and calls related to Daniel, but that no one was willing to actually have a conversation with them. They said I was the first person who was actually willing to meet with them, and they were interested in hearing more about certain aspects. I explained my background and involvement and the specific areas of concern that I originally flagged in my initial emails. I had my laptop pulled up for the two of them to see, and I walked them through a series of documents that I had prepared, where I explained timelines, key people involved, etc.
That'd be so
Both of them
cool to
acknowledged and had a good sense
Dude,
of
this
humor
dude's
about
playing,
what they had
like,
walked into
the
with the
fucking
world
both
of
sides,
Daniel
dude.
Larson.
He's beating the
investigator
prosecutor and the
mentioned
defense
going through the
attorney.
subreddit and
imagine
figuring
being
out
him.
all of the random characters involved with odd
Oh
names
my God,
like
dude,
You know
there's
he was
nothing better to
public.
do.
Flexburger and
Dude, there's
Clark.
nothing better to do.
Jared mentioned how people from his extended team of federal defense attorneys and staff were intrigued with it all, how he saw super old pictures of him randomly popping up on Reddit, and the comments people were making about him and his team on the sub. He even said he printed out a comment someone made about him on Reddit and put it up in his office. They asked questions like whether I thought Daniel had the ability to carry out any of his threats, or if I thought he ever
course
would,
not.
whether I
Other than, like,
believed he was
stabbing
influenced by anyone else
Yeah,
during
you
any
can't-
of the
you-
threats
I
he
don't
was
think you
charged
can actually
with,
make a
questions
bomb
about
without
Daniel's
blowing it
background
up.
and the people in Daniel's life,
Without
and
blowing
about
it
Can't
my
make a bomb.
original
If he does,
reports
he would
to
kill himself
McDougal.
with it.
They said their main focus
like
was
you
on
said.
reducing Daniel's sentencing exposure. It seemed clear that he made the threats, so their priority was advocating for a lighter sentence and making sure that his needs were fully represented. They
Oh,
were
jeez.
interested in talking with a few others if they were open to it.
I gotta
The
go to
names that
bed.
came up were Flexburger, Clark, and the person who was pretending to be Grace Vanderwall at the time.
At the
I
time.
gave the defense team Clark and the fake Grace's contact info, but neither resulted in an actual conversation. I left feeling like Daniel was in good hands and that Jared and the investigator were well equipped
Fucking
to put
good luck
together a
with that
strong
shit.
defense and advocate for him.
It's so lame. Like, why would they not have enough
Right
fucking
before Daniel's
races?
final competency
get it.
hearing, a Reddit user claimed to be a former BOP employee at MCFP Springfield.
Like fast
He
traveling.
claims
to
that
every
Daniel was
fucking
in his direct care
speed
and was
trap,
hosting an
stunt
AMA to answer
and
people's
whatever
questions
the fuck
about
else
what
to get
Daniel
it.
was
It's
like
so
in prison.
dumb.
The user would go on to make some pretty wild statements, some potentially
Alright, man.
accurate and most
I'll
others
see y'all
completely
tomorrow,
made up.
probably.
It became apparent within a couple of hours that people weren't really believing him, so so
night,
he
man.
quickly deleted his entire Reddit account. I believe he will not be found competent. There is not a single
I don't
federal
remember if he
judge or
was or
chief
wasn't.
psychologist that
There's
would
no
say
way
Maybe
he
he
is
wasn't.
mentally fit
There's
to
no
stand
way he's
trial. Daniel had a confirmed use
know,
of an
for some
illicit
reason
substance continuously.
in my head,
he
I think
sings
he
nonstop.
was.
He attended an inmate talent show and sang in front of 30 plus people. Confirmed prior drug use. The interesting part of this whole thing was that the Reddit
Really?
user actually turned out to be a former MCFP Springfield BOP employee, despite making all of those false claims, presumably for clout. The user sent his pay stub and uniform to moderators of the subreddit, which appeared to actually check out. The Larson Leak team was also able to obtain the documentation and track down the actual individual responsible based on usernames used as well as details from his pay
Is this
stub.
one pretending to be Grace?
It turns out that the
Nah,
individual's
this is someone-
employment ended with the BOP soon before he made
Someone
the
who worked
post,
at the jail.
and he was an entry-level BOP guard who
giving
didn't
updates and
actually have direct care of Daniel. We're not even sure if they ever crossed paths with Larson at all. However, he was even Facebook friends with Dr. Hansen, the BOP psychiatrist who testified to Daniel being competent, as well as many of the other MCFP Springfield employees. Regardless of if the information was accurate or not, the user likely broke numerous federal laws and BOP rules that even past employees have to follow. For most people who are watching who don't get what I mean, claiming information about a federal inmate's medical history, medicine schedule, intake, showering schedule, movements within the prison, etc., usually are strictly prohibited from being shared outside of those prison walls. Quincy notified Daniel's defense team of this, which seemed to be a concern legally, especially with the ongoing competency evaluation. We're still unsure of what action, if any, has been taken since that previous reporting.
That's like the last thing I heard.
We'll go to bed after this one, I think.
Yeah.
We'll finish this one now. Play one more game of fucking Mario Super Strike.
After 3 4-month treatment cycles at MCFP Springfield, an evidentiary hearing was held in Denver to review evidence and hear arguments from both the defense as well as the prosecution regarding whether Daniel was competent or not. On January 22nd, 2026, the court filed a list of potential witnesses that were subpoenaed to testify in the competency hearing, although only 2 of those 9 actually ended up testifying. On the list were Dr. Caitlin Hansen, the lead psychiatrist at MCFP Springfield who evaluated and treated Daniel, Dr. Mark Mills, the independent psychiatrist that Daniel's defense brought in to evaluate Daniel, Robert Proctor, better known as Bob Proctor, Daniel's longtime friend and mentor, Greg Suarez, who was believed to be a trust fund manager, potentially pointing to a trust fund that Daniel's grandma may have actually left for him, Mandy Doryland, a local Highlands ranch counselor who likely worked with Daniel in the past, Ian Thompson, the head of Daniel's old caretaker company, Alicia Cho, a psychiatrist expert, Jody Marquez, the operations director for Roundup Fellowship in Denver, someone who worked to help Daniel with housing in the past, and finally, Tiffany Montano, Daniel's old therapist.
What would you like to talk about?
I'm not gonna be involved.
Although the mighty gang of 9 were assembled to testify on behalf of Daniel, only 2 people actually ended up testifying in court. Dr. Hansen and Dr. Mills, the 2 psychiatrists. On March 3rd, 2026, Judge Rodriguez finally ruled on Daniel's competency, and we were able to see exactly what each side was arguing and what exactly those findings were.
I knew it!
Found
He was found competent. How?
Of course, it's because it's a fucking black lady judge. How do you think? She just sees a white guy. Oh, he's white. He's
Daniel's
confident.
defense hired Dr. Mark Mills. Dr. Mills was famously involved in evaluating defendants like Wade Wilson, aka the Deadpool killer, James Terry Colley Jr., as well as an Al-Qaeda suspect. Dr. Mills, at the time, determined that Daniel could not be restored to competence in his opinion. The BOP filed a certificate of competency stating that Daniel was, in fact, competent to stand trial. Due to these clearly conflicting findings, the court held an evidentiary hearing for both sides to argue their findings. The BOP was arguing that Daniel was competent to stand trial, and Daniel's defense was arguing that Daniel was unable to be deemed competent because he lacked the ability to meaningfully help his defense in his own case. In Judge Rodriguez's ruling, she summarized the findings that were argued in court. She recapped some of the points that the BOP psychiatrist, Dr. Hansen, made. Dr. Hansen spent close to a year treating the defendant. She diagnosed Daniel with autism spectrum disorder, level 1, and unspecified schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorder. Dr. Hansen testified that when Daniel first arrived at the BOP Medical Center in December 2024, he suffered from the delusional belief that he was in a relationship with a celebrity singer. Daniel's belief in this relationship and his own celebrity status as a singer and model is reinforced by individuals on social media who encouraged these delusions. Dr. Hansen testified that Daniel received fan mail from individuals who provided Daniel screenshots of conversations regarding his relationship with the celebrity singer. Beginning in February 2025, Daniel started taking antipsychotic medication, and his psychotic symptoms improved with medication. Dr. Hansen reports that Daniel no longer dominates interactions with conversations related to his delusional beliefs. Daniel still would like to be a famous singer and songwriter, which Dr. Hansen attributes to fantastical thinking strengthened by interactions with his quote-unquote fans. In the court filing, Dr. Hansen talks about Daniel's mental health history. The 2011 records indicated that Daniel had a history of headbanging. This continued into adulthood. In 2017, Daniel was hospitalized after he hit his head, broke multiple holes in the walls, and threatened to kill himself because he felt overwhelmed.
Honestly, like they should.
In 2023,
I don't think they
he
should
was
be
brought to a
locked up
hospital
necessarily,
for
but they
punching
should
himself in the
definitely be
face
like
after getting upset.
underwatched.
While at FCI Inglewood,
No,
he
I
hit
agree with
himself
that.
in the face
Like,
because
there
he
needs
was
to be
frustrated.
something
Not
other
to
than
mention, there
jail
are also
for these
reports
guys,
of
you
other
know?
head
Like, for
injuries
somebody like
and
this,
trauma.
like, this
In
guy
fact,
didn't, like,
the report from
diddle
2011
kids or
states
anything, you
that
know?
he had a
Yeah, he
non-accidental
just
head
like
injury
made
at around
dumb
the age
choices.
of 3 weeks old.
Which, to be
and a
fair, he was
seizure at
into
around
Grace
5
Vanderwall
months
when she was,
old.
like,
Daniel also reported that when he was 8 years old, his mother
She was, like,
hit
I'm
him
not
with a
talking about
hammer.
that.
If you watched the last
But other than
episode,
that, like, he
we
didn't-
debunked those last
apparently,
two
I don't think he was
instances
into
about how the
anything,
hammer thing likely did not
Like Josh
happen
Block.
and how the head injury
no, man.
likely points to Daniel's father, Travis,
Oh, yeah,
despite
Peach.
all of the internet flaming
Oh,
his
when he gets
mother for
blocked.
it. Daniel took 2 IQ evaluations with an average
72?
score of 72.
Is that good? I don't know.
I mean, that's
The
like
judge
8 lower than
finalized
the
her
average
ruling by
African
stating that
American.
What's
Daniel
average
Larson had been restored to
America?
competency,
For an
and the
African
case would
American,
continue to trial.
80 for a white, 100, 102.
Dude, I'm curious. I want to do one of those.
Alameda
Like a legit
Wadsworth
one.
is the pseudonym created
Asians
by an
and
individual who
Ashkenazi
attempted
Jews
to
have
attend
the
the
highest
February
IQ.
3rd court
Really?
hearing.
Average,
While
yeah.
we can confirm that
Polish?
they in fact were in the courthouse,
Not
we
good. I
cannot
already know it's
directly
not good.
confirm their claims.
You can look up a
Wadsworth
chart of
shared
it.
that Daniel has put on weight. Just eyeballing it, it seems
on
to
weight,
be around
really?
15 to 20 pounds gained. His haircut is longer than April 6th, but shorter than the CU Boulder arc. Daniel was very calm and lucid, no fidgeting, darting eyes, or rocking in his chair. Daniel could tell that Wadsworth was an online follower, not a legal expert, but maintained his composure. Daniel didn't have the same homeless schizo trying to act normal energy that we would typically see on the body cams. He also didn't have that much facial hair, but he did have a little
Holy
bit
shit,
of what
what
the
the
user
fuck
called
was that?
chin pubes. Wadsworth was removed from the courtroom before the proceedings started. According to Wadsworth, this doctored image is very close to what
Oh,
Daniel
wow.
looked like.
Holy shit.
He looks way more normal.
Yeah, dude. That 20 pounds.
Soon after Daniel
He
was
looks
deemed to be
healthier.
competent to stand
Yeah.
trial, we were notified
That's like
that
healthy weight
Daniel
right
had
there.
reached a plea agreement with the government. This is the typical route defendants take because
I mean,
the federal
to be fair,
government
like,
rarely will
he
indict
needs to
someone
be
on
somewhere,
federal
but
charges
just not, like, in
unless they know
jail,
100%
you know what
the
I'm
person is guilty
Yeah.
and that they'd win at trial.
Dude, it's like
Knowing that Daniel
same
is
with Josh Box. He needs help.
stubborn
72
and
IQ
refuses
and they
to
found
accept
him
responsibility at all for anything. Deep down,
he was
many
able
thought
to
that he would take the
Well, 'cause
case
apparently he
fully
made
to
so much
trial.
progress.
On March 20th, the court
That's true.
confirmed
I don't
that
think
they would
it's not
hold a
enough.
change of plea hearing
I
on
don't
April
think it's
9th,
enough.
where the full plea
To
agreement would
deem
be
that,
revealed
like,
and
he
accepted
was
Like, if he
at
gets
the
out on
time.
his own,
on that April 9th,
can just go right back
2026
to,
day.
you know,
The
he has free
two-year-long
willy
legal
access to
saga
everything.
of Daniel Larson
Yeah, he could
reached
go
its
back.
Go right back to
definitive
it.
turning point.
It's
After
possible.
months of evaluations and back and forth regarding his
spent
mental
years
state,
like that.
Daniel appeared before Judge
then he spends
Regina
1-2
Rodriguez to
years in
formally
prison,
enter a change
pretending
of
to
plea.
not
Alameda Wadsworth
be,
attended
you know,
the hearing. Alameda reported
obsessed.
that 20 minutes before the start of the hearing, he and around 5 other Daniel Larson fans were waiting to be let inside the courtroom, along with Daniel's attorney, Jeffrey Fahler. Alameda shared that there were ultimately around 10 fans
know
that were
about
in the
Alameda.
courtroom gallery. He said that Daniel did an angry tongue as he sat down. Daniel had a slightly grown-out buzz cut and, quote-unquote,
He did that
long-ass
phrase a lot.
claw fingernails and was still chubbier like he was seen during his previous competency hearing. Daniel was seen as being tense before the hearing started. Then, it began. The plea deal was straightforward but significant. Daniel agreed to plead guilty to count 6 of the indictment. The specific charge related to the interstate communication of threats, specifically targeting none other than
So he is
Special
going back to
Agent
jail for some
McDougal.
time.
In the plea agreement, McDougal noted
Yeah,
all of the times he was contacted or met
But
with
he
Daniel,
pleaded, like,
and
the
it was
craziest
way
one.
more than we knew. August 18th, 2023, August
Bombing of the
30th,
FBI
2023, September 6th, October 3rd, October 19th, and November 30th, all in the same year. And that's just over the course of the 4 months discussed in the court filing. It doesn't include the various times McDougal interviewed Daniel in early 2024 that we know about. If we look back at these dates, McDougal was making contact with Daniel after most of the concerning threats Daniel was making at the time.
Yeah.
But now, we can see that Daniel McDougal was behind things like Daniel's October 19, 2023 arrest in Jefferson County, and apparently McDougal even met Daniel before or after his November 30th, 2023 court hearing in relation to his incident at Folsom Field. It was
He just looks so
always
lost.
McDougal, and it's fitting that the one charge that stuck was Daniel's threats against him. But anyways, back to his plea deal. In exchange for this plea, the government agreed to dismiss the other 6 counts, which included the various bomb threats that not only were a concern to those who saw his post, but also to the local community that he was threatening. Court records show that the DDRC had to go on lockdown and have the police sweep the building for bombs after Daniel made his bomb threat against them. Let that sink in. Despite some misleading media reports claiming that he pleaded guilty to the bomb threats, the record is clear. Those counts were dropped.
Crazy.
As a part of the agreement, Daniel also had to abandon his rights to his Motorola Moto G stylus phone, essentially handing over the
Motorola.
very tool he used to document and broadcast his threats to the world.
He'll just buy another one.
It's quite a symbolic end,
gets
with
out
his
in
phone being his lifeline,
15, 20
while
years.
also being the reason that he was in trouble in the first place. Oh, the stories that phones could tell, man. Jesus criminy.
I wonder what
Both
Daniel
the defense
Larson's,
and
like,
the government also agreed on a
background
range
is.
of 27 to 33 months in federal prison as Daniel's
27 to
expected prison
33?
sentence.
That's not that bad.
Dude, that's
It is important to note that
3
Daniel
years,
will
4 years?
receive credit for the time that he has already served since being taken into
years, 12
custody.
months or so.
However, the final sentencing decision did not happen on April the 9th. Judge Rodriguez has deferred the final approval of the plea deal until she can review the presentence investigation report. This report will be a deep dive into Daniel's history, mental health, the circumstances of his crimes, etc., which will ultimately guide the judge's final ruling.
Fuck, it's my dad's birthday today.
The final boss date, it's now set. Daniel is scheduled to return to court on July 21st, 2026 at approximately 1 p.m. for his formal sentencing.
June 6th.
On July 21st, we will learn the exact fate of Daniel Larson. The judge will be ruling on Daniel's actual sentencing within the ranges already determined by the plea agreement.
That is fucking...
So that basically means 27 to 33 months in federal prison,
this year.
1 to 3 years of supervised release with conditions,
Kind of nuts.
and also a fine between $10,000 and up to $95,000. But even as the case moves toward a close, the court is making it clear that Daniel's isolation from the community that fueled his delusions is an absolute priority. The judge ordered the Bureau of Prisons and U.S. Marshals to notify the court of any contact, harassment, or threats made toward Daniel by outside parties. This means that anyone writing letters pretending to be Grace or trying to catfish Daniel into calling you, it'll all be documented and reported to the court. This seems to be a key focus for them moving forward. This will continue even after Daniel is released from prison. So, yeah, don't touch the poop. When Daniel is released with restrictions, the conditions will be so strict because Daniel just cannot be falling back into doing the same shit he was doing before. We can likely expect things like restricted internet access, restricted social media access, an ankle monitor probably, a curfew, and probably an inability to leave the state of Colorado. And when we say restricted, we mean he probably won't have any internet or social media access at all. All this to say, we likely won't be hearing from Daniel for a while, if ever again. If anyone tries to contact him or attempts to troll him, it will be reported to the authorities, and the person will either be banned from making further contact or even possibly investigated to see if it meets the legal threshold to actually bring charges. And if Daniel decides to break one of his conditions, like trying to use social media, that itself is grounds to send him back to prison for even longer.
I see him trying
while
to
Daniel
get a phone
Larson's
again.
story is over for the time being, fear
Oh,
not.
yeah.
as
He's gonna
the
try to get
Larson
a phone in
Files
jail.
series
Dude, he's just
is
gonna go
only
right- that's
getting
what they do.
started.
They always
I
go
know
right
this
back.
is said each episode, but Larson
People
Leak
like
wants
him.
to thank you for the insane
didn't help
support
him
on the
long
series
enough.
thus far. Larson Leak actually recently opened up a Patreon page, so for those wondering why or what its purpose is, let me explain in
Like,
Flex's
with somebody
own
like that,
words.
you
As
gotta
many
spend,
of you already
like,
know, I've been pretty dedicated to the
8 to
TLF
10
series
years,
on
like,
YouTube. I've had tons of
correcting
random
them.
Daniel videos, photos, and calls over the years. I don't think we'll ever make a TLF episode, but still definitely need to be seen. So I figured this Patreon would be a good opportunity to finally share them. As far as production, editing, writing for TLF, I'm a one-man band. I know Larson Leak might be portrayed as a whole group of people, but that isn't the case. These videos take a very long time to make, and with adequate support, I can speed things up and improve production quality through hiring artists. My goal here on Patreon is to post a long-form video here every
this
week
was
or so.
4 weeks
whether
ago.
it
There'll
be
probably be
a
another
5-minute
in a few
preview, a
days.
scrapped YouTube slash
The next
TLF
update will
segment,
I'm guessing like
probably-
August.
an entire 45-minute episode early.
Probably not
and sprinkle
long
in random
after,
artifacts like
August,
screenshots, pics,
after July.
documents,
It was like
etc.
July
the-
2021.
whenever I feel like
July
it. Flex
21st.
has already
yeah.
published unseen calls from the UCLA arc and more. Also,
Yeah.
whether you hate this series or love it, you can now also rate the series on IMDb.
Oh, that
so
was
be
awesome.
sure to tell
So
us
crazy.
what you think of both in the comments.
That was fucking awesome, dude.